I grew up with Howard Stern, and the cool thing about Howard Stern was the best shows he had would when he'd have some like porno star and a weird guy and like and then a dwarf and all this other kind of stuff. They would be the guests. The weird ones or the worst ones would be like he'd have a celebrity. Yeah, because the celebrities are trained to like say. That's why I always hate when people interview politicians. They don't say anything.
Right.
That's one of the reasons why like Trump, for instance, is unusual in a sense that he will say things that make you go, what the hell did he just say? Yeah. Whereas most of the time, like politicians will just like whatever question you ask them, they answer whatever question they want to answer. And then you're just
Word
like
salads,
yeah, it's just like, I believe in America and America is America and without America, there'd be no America. And then you're just like, I asked you how you're doing. Like, it doesn't matter. Yeah. So that would be my like dream is just to have a talk show that would just kind of like, I'd want like an exotic dancer, a homeless person, and Gavin Newsom, and just like talk
all at once,
and they'd all be equal, and they'd all just, and we would, hey, you want to talk about homelessness? Here, Gavin, your take. How guy who lives in a box? What do you think?
That would be great.
Yeah,
that's actually really clever.
Yeah, okay. I hope I occasionally have those.
Do you?
Clever ideas.
Oh, clever ideas. Oh, yeah. Meetings with Gavin Newsom, homeless people.
I think Gavin...
Here's the problem with Gavin Newsom. Again, I'm originally from Pennsylvania, so I always sit there and I just feel I'm still in that point because I've lived here for 7 years of being an outsider. Okay. Gavin Newsom totally looks like how most people view a Californian. He's suave. He's, comes from a little bit of money. Really, that kind of a little bit of smug about California. Like DeSantis looks like Florida. Cheap suit, giant head. Yeah. Has a great degree, but still kind of says dumb shit. That kind of. Gavin Newsom looks like California, and so sometimes he just believes that Californianess will overcome any sort of issue they have. Like, it's like, that they're, people are leaving the state. Like, well, we're the 40 million people and, it's beautiful here in Yosemite. And you're just like, oh, so your answer to people leaving and homelessness is it's really nice here and eventually it'll turn around just because it is what
California.
It is. Yeah. And like, it is something that you kind of need someone sometimes to run something that isn't so in love with it that they're willing to change it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about like a Gavin Newsom. Like I always feel truth comes out after like 2 beers. I'd want to have a couple beers with him and be like, bro, what the fuck? Yeah. And then like, all right, here's what's going on. Like that's when you get behind something like that. That's why like one of the great talk shows is the one where they eat chicken wings. Because then all of a sudden the whole thing knocks down and they're like, oh my God, now you're getting the real person because of the whole concept of like, hey, I'm actually feeling pain. I'm actually feeling something now. Yeah. And so you're seeing like a glimpse into this person's like personality because without that, you're just kind of like, oh, I have a new movie coming out. It's called, Joe Bag of Donuts Presents. And then it's boring. And then 10 minutes later, it's over and they kind of move on.
That's a great thing about podcasts too, because I think you naturally over an hour, 2 hours, I'm not gonna
stay here for 2 hours.
3 hours.
God damn it!
6 hours,
bro. 8 hours, 9 hours.
Dude, we're trying to top Rogan here. That's what we're trying to do here.
Oh, for fuck's sake! No,
we're trying to.
Have you ever listened to an entire Joe Rogan?
I have. Many.
Yeah.
Jesus.
People listen to the entire.
I know people do. I've never met one.
Never do.
But
you met two now.
But like, I mean, I'll watch a segment.
Yeah.
Like I'll see something on YouTube. It's like, hey, we're talking to, this guy. And we're like, oh, 10 minutes? I have 10 minutes. But 3 hours?
When you're not doing anything, when you work by yourself in a warehouse, you can listen to Joe Rogan for 3 hours.
Okay. You can do anything for 3 hours if you're listening to, if you're working in a warehouse by yourself, you're just stacking boxes. You might as well just listen to daily affirmations of someone who's just kind of like, you're
daily
better
mantra.
than this.
Definitely would kill myself if I did that.
You're better than this.
You're better than
this.
You're not going to get deported.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not going to get deported.
Well, hopefully no one here is getting deported.
No, not yet.
Maybe.
What do you think of late night comedians then? The late night talk shows of this day, like Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon, Conan.
Well, Conan doesn't even have one anymore. So he's almost kind of graduated to now like the industry the fact that he without a talk show is now going to host the Oscars for 2 straight years. Just shows the power of podcasts and shows the power of that whole medium, in a sense of 20 years ago, he'd just be like, yeah, you're retired. You don't have a show anymore. You're gone. Yeah. Instead, he's still relevant because
he's acting
of that.
now, too, in movies.
Again, he has, it's almost, I had a buddy who actually worked on his show on Warner Brothers, and he sat there and he called it the Golden Handcuffs.
The Golden Handcuffs.
Because, like, it's a great job, but you've got a show, you've got to do 4 days a week, and you've got all this kind of stuff, so you can't do other things.
Right.
So now,
Interesting.
the fact that he can do his shows on Max, and he can go travel around the world, and he can be in movies and do all this kind of stuff is kind of cool with him. Again, I remember, and I'm old enough to remember, when, like, Johnny Carson was the man. Like, that's the thing about, like, when you would watch a Johnny Carson, he was a bigger star, or at least as big a star as any of his guests. So, like, it would make sense if he and Frank Sinatra would be talking to each other, because Frank Sinatra looked at him as an equal. There was one point in 1980 where legitimately they said Johnny Carson was responsible for 1 out of every $4 that NBC made.
Oh, wow.
Which is, and like, he made in terms of, like, 25% of every dollar that NBC made in 1980 was directly responsible for Johnny Carson. The reason why you have Saturday Night Live is because Johnny Carson did not want his reruns to be shown on Saturday night anymore, which is why they said, well, we have an hour and a half on Saturday to kill. Let's do a show. Because he was like, no, I want to take more vacations. The reason why, like, the Comedy Store became a big deal in the whole Los Angeles comedy scene is because he moved his show from New York to LA. So because so what's happening almost with Rogan, in a sense of people following him to Austin, is very
Johnny
similar
Carson.
to what happened in the 70s when people would come to LA because they were like, oh, I've got to follow Johnny Carson. So to have that power, and remember when late night talk shows had that kind of power, and to now see that, like, if you watch like a Jimmy Fallon who's getting like 1.5 million people, when, like, at one point Johnny Carson was getting 20 million people. That's why when people talk about, like, like old comics would talk about, like, oh, I was on the Tonight Show on a Tuesday and by Friday I was a millionaire. Is because 20 million people was watching you for 10 minutes perform.
Right.
And there were only 3 channels, 4 if you count like PBS. So, like, the whole country was watching you. And if you did well, that you were up. It was literally just...
Wow.
Like Johnny, Jay Leno said, he goes, what is it with today? And because of podcasts, he said, it's a lot easier to make a living these days, but it's a lot harder to get out of the middle. It's a lot harder to get, like, from zero to biggest star in the world. Whereas, like, legitimately Robin Williams was a street performer, and then 2 months later had his own TV show. Like, that stuff doesn't necessarily happen right now. But you could get, like, oh, I'm viral and now I can tour, or now I can do whatever. You're making a living from zero to whatever. But to get to a point to where, like, everyone in America knows you, that's very, very hard to do these days.
It's a very big pool right now.
Yeah, because it's just, again, this was impossible 30 years ago. This, just doing a podcast where just, But the problem is like, really what this is the equivalent of if in 1980 we all just were like, hey, let's not wait for NBC. Let's just do our own damn show. We don't need their cameras. We don't need their marketing. Let's just put our cameras. There's more technology in these phones than George Lucas had when he made Star Wars. And so, like, possibly, I really do believe, like, I know for a fact there's more computing power in each one of these phones than NASA had in 1969 when they sent a man to the moon. And so you sit there and we have these powers, and now you can just, like, oh, we'll just set it up and set some lights up and boom, we have a show. We don't need giant studios. We don't need giant marketing. We don't need to have all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of cool.
What made you want to move halfway across the country and pursue comedy?
Completely across the country?
Yeah, completely.
Yeah, originally from Pittsburgh, and I was doing comedy in Pittsburgh for 6 years, and you have to make a choice at some point. Like, if I'd have stayed in Pittsburgh, then I do stuff on the weekends. You have a limit to where you can go. Whereas Like it's funny. Tim Dillon was on a podcast recently and he was talking about what makes Los Angeles Los Angeles. And he goes, Los Angeles seduces you by the fact that you see a life that's better than any life you could possibly ever fathom, but literally no one has it. But you literally could think about, like, if I made it here and I lived in one of those houses up in the mountains of Beverly Hills, and I had that $50 million house, and I had that, that TV show or that movie deal or whatever, you're living the most incredible life in the world. Now, none of us know anybody that has that. We're all kind of just scrabbling to get like a show here, a show there, a podcast here, a podcast there. But that's what makes this town amazing. And so to know that that exists, you have two choices. Either you make the jump and you figure out, hey, can I hit major league pitching? Can I do it? Or you stay back, in your hometown, you sit there and be like, oh, what if? I didn't want to live in a world where I was asking myself, what if?
So you did it for the enjoyment for the 6 years, just the enjoyment.
For 6 years, it was just, so what happened to me was initially my idea was that I wanted to be on radio. Okay. And so I actually eventually had a sports talk radio in Pittsburgh. I was on like the equivalent. I was on The Fan. Okay. So, CBS radio, all that kind of good stuff. And then that went away. And so I was like, well, I don't really like the fact that someone else has to clear it by me for me to do something. What if there was an art form to where I didn't need anybody's clearance? And that's cool about stand-up. Yeah. Like, you can get up in an open mic every night for the next, for 100 years and just like, hey, I'm a comedian. I get up every night. I do whatever. I don't need anybody's permission to do it. Yeah. Whereas if you're a radio guy, you need a big, giant company's permission to get on the air kind of deal.
Yeah. Okay, got it.
So to get that, and I found stand up, and I like the fact that it's.
And you enjoyed it, and then you're like, okay, this could be something real, and then you're like, oh, LA, and then you move here,
yeah. And I never, I was born in Atlanta. I grew up in Pittsburgh. I went to school in Connecticut.
Oh wow!
And so I'd already kind of dealt, and I had family in the Midwest, so I kind of lived there. And so I had a sister, and at the time, 2 brothers who lived out here. And so I was like, well, let's try LA. And
are they still out here?
My sister is. My 2 brothers moved back literally 3 months after I moved out here.
Did you think you would move to the West Coast?
Well, they were here. They beat me here. And so I thought, well, they were already here. So I thought, oh, I'll go to LA. Yeah. I came out here to visit them when they lived out here. And I was like, oh, I like it. It's cool. And so when I moved out here, I'm like, hey, I got 2 brothers and a sister that live out here. Yeah. I got family. And then my 2 brothers are like, oh, no, we're going back to Pittsburgh.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So that my sister's still here. What?
Why did they move back?
One was my brother had a kid, and having a kid and a life and all that kind of stuff in LA can be expensive. And then my other brother just eventually just kind of got, dare I say, sick of traffic and sick of this and sick of that and all that kind of stuff. And so he just decided to go move back, and now he's an English teacher at my old high school that I went to.
Wow, that's very interesting. Okay.
So and then my sister actually does comedy out here as well. So she she does stand up, but mostly she works with like improv, UCB, stuff like that. So
sketch comedy,
that kind of stuff.
What gives you the most fulfillment about comedy? Like, what is it the fact that you mentioned that there's no person clearing your jokes away, or you don't have to ask for someone's affirmation necessarily?
Yes. When you're in that place to where it's working, and your brain turns off and you're just in the moment, it's just an incredible feeling. And also, I think I can be good at this. And when you have a chance to be good at something, you want to continually work at it to see how good you could possibly be at it. The exciting thing about me is I don't even think I'm remotely close to how good I will eventually be. I'm way better than I was 6 months ago. I'm a world better than I was 5 years ago. I can't fathom how much better I am at this than I first started 11, 12 years ago. So that inspires me. Because most of the comics that you see at the, that we all know that tour and all that kind of stuff, they're year 20, year 30, whatever. I'm really excited to see where I'll be in year 20 or year 30 or whatever like that. Because it's interesting. And I don't know, like we did the show we did a week ago. Yeah. That show, if you sit there and be like, all right, it's a group of USC students here to see their teacher perform.
Yes. Let's
try a 48-year-old guy from Pittsburgh at him. That's a challenge. That's what you live for. Like, all right, let me see if I can figure something out about these people. And that's the fun part about it. And so you just try it and you kind of go from there.
That's what I admired about your style that day and that show. So we did a show. Mm-hmm. The guy who headlined was his math professor at USC.
Oh, really?
He gave kids extra credit to come see him perform.
And an extra 3 extra credit for every person they brought.
Oh, wow.
I didn't know that. What?
So like people brought 3 or 4 people so they could get more credit for the. So it was not even the students; it was the students bringing their friends.
Oh my god,
genius!
And then on top of that, no, it wasn't genius. It was the worst idea I've ever heard in my life because they didn't want to be there.
Yeah, it was.
But for numbers,
well, but but here's the fucked up thing about it. And I've always said this about comedy. People will sit there and be like, "What's your demographic?" I don't have a demographic. I have a psychographic. I've made groups of 18 to 20-year-olds laugh, and I've made 90-year-olds laugh. If you're in a headspace to where you want to have a good time,
you're going to have a good time.
You're going to have a good time.
Yeah, true.
They were in a headspace of, I'm here because I have to be here because I failed that test and I need to pass this. So I had to find parking in a part of the city where it's impossible to park, and I have to figure this out. And you're sitting there and you just were not in a space. Like you opened and I've seen you perform and you're good. And they were just kind of like, I don't like the concept of stand-up. I don't like it.
Really?
It was, bro, the most annoying part was there was this one group. There's a guy and a girl, and they kept talking to each other loudly, specifically during your set. I felt bad for you. And you try to, go
Oh, don't feel bad for me. I was having fun with them. Yeah. I fucked with them.
Yeah. You try to, and they just, they didn't shut up. Like, the club's owner came and talked to them. He's like, we're going to kick you out if you keep doing
Eventually,
it.
they did leave.
They eventually left. Is after I basically harassed them for 5 minutes. Turns out the guy was cheating on the girl. And
what?
and they spent that, and that was the moment to talk about it.
Are you serious? And they said this during your
I was set? Yeah. So not during my set. So I was hosting. So I did my set.
Okay.
I brought up Mike. I brought up the comedians, and in between, before the headliner came, I was like, let me just handle the situation because when the headliner comes, he's doing 40 minutes. Like I don't want
what?
He's doing
this math teacher. Wow. Okay.
I don't know why he was doing 45 minutes.
Well, the best was we're like, oh, you taping a special tonight? Oh no, I already taped it.
Yeah. He wasn't
like, what is your motivation for this thing? What are you doing?
It's just
I already taped
conquering himself.
Yeah, just like I need to do it again. No, you don't. What are you doing? The thing that got me about those people was they came late.
Oh, yeah.
So they came during my set, and the first thing they did was all take a picture.
Oh, yes.
And I sat there. Well, not of me, of them. Like they were just
a selfie. Okay.
And if there's anything that pisses me off about, like, you want to talk about, like, me being the old man who kind of hate it. Dude, be in this moment.
Yeah.
Because once you take a picture and send it on social media, now you're living in the world where, I'm here to impress people that aren't even here.
Right.
It's like, no, dude, be right here. This is a moment. This is something you'll remember. Someone will sit there and say, did you ever see a comedy show? Yes, it was awful. I hated it. I hated everybody there, whatever, but I've been there. That's what life is. It's moments.
Yeah.
And as soon, like, I make a joke where I sit there and I go, social media has almost ruined everything, because I remember when you would go to the beach and you wouldn't hold an impromptu survey about how many people like you. That's basically what you're doing when you're taking a photo and then for the next 24 hours seeing who likes it.
Yeah.
Or like I've said the joke where I've been like, okay, I have literally performed in some of the biggest comedy clubs in the world, posted the story, and then checked consistently about who sees it. Yeah. And if one of the 3 women that I want to have sex with don't see it, I have this terrible feeling of like, why did I even go? What was the point? Yeah. but that ruins the moment. It's like, who cares about anything else? But that's the thing.
Yeah.
It's about likes. And I do a podcast with a guy named Ron Bush, and great podcast called Mike and Ron Here to Help. Check it out. You just Google Mike and Ron Here to Help. You sit down. And he has a bit called Likes and Followers, where that's all anybody cares about. It's just likes and followers, likes and followers. Yeah. And everything then is just about like feeding the algorithm, feeding all this kind of stuff. And so when those guys took that picture, I was so like, bro, you're missing the point of what this is.
Did you pick on them for that?
I didn't care about them. That's the thing about picking on someone. In order to pick on someone, you have to give a shit. I didn't care if they lived or died. Like, I didn't care about them. Like,
they're dead now.
Good.
They're dead to you.
Good. Less douchebags in the world. Like, but that's the thing. I always love when someone's just like, yeah, I'm gonna pick on this part. Why? Who cares? Let them live. Whatever.
But like crowd work. I'm sure you do some crowd work
occasionally. But my only problem with crowd work is why am I talking to you? I'm way more interesting than you. Why would I? What do you do for a living? Who cares? I don't care about you. Watch me.
Yeah, you're here to see you.
Yeah, seriously. Like you think freaking like Taylor Swift is like, here, I'm gonna watch you play guitar. No, I'm Taylor Swift. I'm the superstar. You're here to see me. I'm the comic. I'm the one who practiced. Yeah. Watch me do this.
But in comedy, there's some synergy when you're able to interact with the crowd. In music, there's no like
laughter.
Interaction. Yeah, laughter.
That's the interaction.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a conversation, but it's a conversation of silence means I don't agree with you, and laughter means I do agree with you.
Okay.
That's all it is. That's why I always joke when someone sits there and says, I go to a feedback mic. Every mic is a feedback mic.
Yeah.
You either laugh or you don't get laughs. That's the feedback. There is no like afterwards, well, I think you could do this. No, the laughter or no laughter. That's it. So when you sit there and I'm going to go, I mean, like you can be like, so are you two together? I'd be almost like, who cares if you're two together? This is my take on dating. I don't care about your take on dating. I'm the professional. I came here. You came to see me. Here's my take on it.
So what
if you have your own take, then go to a couple hundred open mics and do your own damn show.
What's your take on dating?
It's whatever it is. It is what it is.
What is that? You sound like a politician.
It's like, but it's okay. I always hate when people sit there and say, well, dating is this. It's hard. Yeah, you're trying to find, hopefully, somebody that you want to spend the rest of your life with. That shouldn't be, like, easy. I mean, like, I thought about this the other day because I saw this. Someone posted, goes, someone told me the other day that I should lower my standards. And I almost wanted to make, like, no, don't lower your standards. Figure out what your standards actually are and what is actually important. Like if some woman sits there and goes, I don't date anybody under 5'8".
Yeah.
Okay, so that's your standard.
Yeah.
Why? Ask yourself, why is that your standard? Not lower it. Don't go, okay, no, it's 5'6". No, ask yourself, why is 5'8" so damn important?
Right.
That's what you go at. So when someone sits there and says, like, dating is hard, it's supposed to be hard. It's like someone sit there and go, man, stand-up is hard. Yeah, it's supposed to be hard.
Yeah. Right.
So when someone, tell me what you think about, the Donald Trump. He's the president and he's weird. That's like, like when you sit there and say, what do I like in comedy? I want you to tell me something that I've never thought of or something about something that's mundane that I've never noticed. So if you go like, oh, tell me about male-female relationships, they're kind of weird because I don't think that we truly understand that we're pretty much the same thing. We're just going at it from different angles.
Okay.
But it is when I say it is what it is, it's kind of like when someone goes, oh, it's raining outside.
Yeah.
Okay, so what now? Wear a raincoat, get in your car, drive slower. Like, you know what it is.
Right.
The weirdo would be someone to be like, why is it raining? Why does it rain? Why does it rain on me? Why does it rain at all? Because it did. Shut up. Get in your car. Go home. Take a nap. Who cares? That's boring. That's stupid. Why are you being that way?
Okay, so I was going to bring up a point. So you said originally with the dating scenario, right? You said, okay, you should ask why. Why do you have these standards, right? What do you do about that?
Yeah.
Okay, and then you said with the raining situation, you said the weirdo asks, why is it raining, right?
Yeah.
But I think personally, the first take was more interesting because I think that the real answer to everything, and I think this goes far beyond dating, goes far beyond anything, is not enough people ask the question why, right?
Of course not.
Right.
People don't like to.
They don't.
Everyone wants everything to be about that instead of this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I remember one time saying to someone, they were going back to dating, it was like, oh, I can't find someone. I go, well, what are you doing to better yourself? Because it's real easy to sit there and say everyone else is screwy.
Right. Yeah.
Every relationship I've ever had that hasn't worked out has been my fault. Even if it necessarily I didn't do anything, it's just like, okay, I have to improve myself. It's the same thing. Like, the worst thing you can do as a stand-up comic is blame the audience. The audience is what the audience is. Your job is to figure something out.
Fair.
And so,
except you, independent variable, their fault.
Okay.
Except those damn kids, man.
Well, okay. But did I blame them? No.
No. Yeah.
I sat there and I went, okay, here's the. Yeah. I just became on that night. I just turned up the volume, and I didn't do material. Oh, you did? I just went after him.
You know what he did? That was something really I respect. Yeah. He took the thing out of the mic and he just like full blown TED talked his way. He just took the thing out and he just preached to the kids, which I've never seen anybody do. That takes some balls to do for 2.5 minutes. Yeah. You gave them advice on life.
Yeah. But you know the funny thing is, about 10 of them came up to me and went, "That's great."
Yeah. Yeah.
That was awesome.
Really? After the show, they went to him. Bro.
Yeah. Because
what did you tell them?
Fundamentally, college, I think sometimes college kids don't understand exactly what the whole point of that is. They think it's, oh, I have to learn this skill. An hour into your first job, you're going to realize none of that meant anything. Ultimately, what college is an experience that makes you grow as a human being, and ultimately, you know, it's the first time you're by yourself and you figure out who the hell you are. Like today is actually my niece's 14th birthday. So I called her today back in Pittsburgh and I said, hey, happy birthday, blah, blah, blah. And I could hear someone behind them going like, oh, you know, Carly, she's going to high school and then she's going to go to college. And I said to her, and I go, no, enjoy today. Yeah. Enjoy this experience. Don't make your whole life about the future, 4 years from now. Yeah. Be right here. And that's the thing. Like when you go to college, all those kids are like, well, what am I going to do when I get a job? No, be here. Be with your buddies. Yeah. Be in that dorm and, you know, eating pizza, watching movies. Be in that dorm, drinking your face off and puking on yourself. Realize what you like, who you like, what you are, all that kind of shit. That's what you're there for the next 4 years about. And so that's why it goes back to that guy who took the selfie. I'm like, no. You're having something uniquely happen to you that you might never do again. Be here. And so that's all I said to him. I go, realize what these next 3 or 4 years or next 2 years or whatever is. Yeah. And they all came up to me like, oh, yeah, really cool. Because, again, they got their parents in their ear going, what are you going to do afterwards? What are you going to do afterwards? What are you going to do afterwards? If there's anything I've learned that I could tell anybody from my experience, as long as you got air in your lungs, you can always hit the reset button. Like anybody who thinks like, oh, by the time I'm 30, you'll be 30 years old and you'll be like, I just got started. You know, you could be 40 years old. I just got started. Yeah. I don't even know what, I mean, if there's anything about LA, which is very weird, is I've literally had conversations with 70-year-olds that have been like, this is what I want to do when I grow up.
Really?
Yeah. Because in their minds, they're still growing. They're still moving forward. They're still trying to see. Dude, I've heard it. Now you might sit there and be like, you know, you're getting to the point where it's just like you're kind of pretty much what you are.
Colonel Sanders at KFC, he was like 74.
Colonel Sanders took his first Social Security check, and that's when he started KFC.
What?
Yeah, he took his first Social Security check, bought like a crock pot and all this kind of stuff, and then went on the road, and that's when he started KFC. Like Ray Kroc, have you ever seen the movie The Founder? He was in his mid-50s before he started McDonald's. So, yeah. So it's this concept of what I would tell college kids is have the experience, enjoy yourself, don't do anything that would, you know, that's, you know, you can't fix later. You can't undo. But then at the end of the day, you just walk away and go, all right, that was a cool experience.
Man, I've been operating like I'm gonna die at 30.
This guy operates. This guy operates like something you've never met, bro. In his head, he's just like, I'm telling you right now, bro.
And that's okay. There's no problem with having urgency. Yeah. There's no problem with sitting there going, I got to get going. Yeah. I was thinking about this on the drive down. What would I say to somebody like, you know, what I've learned in like 20 years or so that I've left college. Number one, people don't tell you what they want, they show you.
Say that one more time.
People don't tell you what they want, they show you. So if somebody sits there and goes, I wonder if this girl's interested in, she'll show you. I wonder if I really want this. You'll show them.
Yeah.
That's the other thing.
Great point.
Yeah. Number two, you can't make somebody care. Like the worst thing that people see out of like rom-coms is like, oh, she doesn't like me, I'll show her. No.
Doesn't work.
Doesn't work. Yeah. Move on.
Test and improve.
And yeah, just move on. Yeah. But that's why it's a movie. It's the same people that the dinosaurs are alive. That's the thing. Because it plays upon our hopes and desires of, well, maybe the reason why this person doesn't love me is because I haven't shown them something.
I wore the wrong tie or something. Yeah.
Yeah. They don't know me.
Yeah.
Hopeless romantics, man.
Exactly. It's hopeless. That's the key part of that two sentence. Hopeless. It ultimately, that's why I never understood anybody that like harasses a woman. All you're doing is just being like, hey, are you interested? No. Thanks.
Sayonara, yeah.
Yeah. Just move on.
Yeah.
Okay, find someone. Again, there's a key for every keyhole. Go keep going, keep looking.
Keep plugging away.
And if you feel like you're not getting the best results, work on yourself. And I'm not saying like get in the gym and, take, Alpha Brain or something stupid, but like, all right, just become a better version of you.
Yeah.
Work on yourself. Become maybe you're coming off as weird. Figure out why you're coming off as weird. Maybe you are weird. Figure out why you're weird.
Yeah.
Find that move forward. Yeah.
Yeah. I do think going to the gym does help though. Find yourself.
It does help you in a sense of it's a great exercise to, alleviate stress.
Yes.
And again, if you're physically in shape, you're mentally in shape, you're working on yourself. And then also it shows someone else that, hey, I care about myself. Mm-hmm. I care about how my appearance is. I care about, again, if you show up on a date and you got a stained t-shirt and you don't comb your hair, then this person's going to be like,
you're a slob, bro.
You're a slob. But what does that indicate?
Yeah.
It indicates that I don't take care of myself. That means I won't take care of you. That means I won't take care of a potential union between us, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Whereas if you show, no, I care about this. Some female comic was on Twitter. She says, like, some guy's complaining, I can't afford to go on so many dates. It's so expensive. Like, yeah, that's the point. We want you to show us that we're important to you so that, we're the only one that you care about.
Yeah.
But that's why being rich helps. But
yeah.
But yeah, so that's why, like, I remember, again, I had a football coach and people would always come up to him and be like, you watch, coach, I'm going to gain 10 pounds of muscle. He'd always say things. Don't tell me, show me. I'm going to go and I'm going to don't tell me, show me.
Yeah.
Show me you want to do it. Or like when I was a football coach, when someone would sit there and be like, coach, why aren't I playing? Make it that I have to play you.
Yeah.
Make it that I can't possibly not play you. Practice every day so that I have to be like, I got to find a way to get. There's never been a coaches meeting where it's like, we got so many good football players. It's a real problem. No, that's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
You'll find spots for good people. It's the same thing with comedy. If you sit there and you keep going to the open mic and you don't get shows, keep working.
Yeah.
Keep going. Keep figuring it out. Your goal anytime you go up on stage is to make the room shake. Your goal is, Bill Burr had this, he talked about, he goes, what would you be your advice to young comics? He goes, your goal is to essentially make it that no one can follow you. Like you are so good that the audience, that you make the next 2 or 3 comics bomb because they can't freaking follow you.
You have to be undeniably funny.
You have to be undeniably funny and then do it for a year, 2 years, whatever, and consistently do it. And then someone will find you. That's the other thing. A buddy of mine one time went up to Sarah Silverman at the Improv, and he went up, he goes, hey, I'm a new comic. I moved to LA. What is some advice you have? She goes, if you're good, it's impossible for you to remain a secret for that long.
100%.
Yeah.
So just keep going. People that you don't even know how many people are noticing you until it happens.
Yeah.
Every set means nothing until the one that means something.
We know what that does. Having that philosophy gives you the complete freedom of your life. It doesn't give the negative thoughts in your life freedom, because oftentimes when we're not to the destination where we want to be, we keep lingering on this idea of why am I not there? And that just takes such a big hold of you that it actually prevents you from being your best self. So having that gives you the complete liberty to say, I have total control over myself.
Nick Saban always has a quote. He goes, you have to be passionate about the process.
Yeah. You have to enjoy the journey.
Yeah, you have to. And the thing is it's like every day you're just about doing the little things possible to get to. You can't be a result-oriented person. You have to be a process-oriented person. You got to do the things necessary to get good. And then ultimately results will happen. Because the funny thing about it is that a lot of what we view as quote unquote success almost has nothing to do with us. Like you go to a show and you're like, well, why didn't I get picked? Because this person needed to find 2 female black comics. Sorry, not a female black comic.
Yeah.
Next. But that doesn't mean anything. Oh, hey, I'm too old. I'm too young. I'm too this. I'm too that. I'm too fat, too skinny, too tall, too short, too whatever. And you just keep going until someone said to me once, he goes, you just have to be good enough for when they're looking for someone exactly like you.
Okay.
Damn.
Yeah. Yeah.
Funny that can be scary though, because I think you don't necessarily have to wait for somebody. You can make your own thing as well. You know.
That's where, again, in my opinion, knowing and having passion for that. Hopefully, you're in this room because there's no other place you'd rather be than this room right here, right now. Not they're like, I gotta go do the podcast.
Yes.
Because eventually you'll come up with an excuse of why I got to do this. I got to work tomorrow.
Feeling wears out.
Yeah. Whereas if somebody sits there and says, Mike, why do you keep going to open mics every day? Because I love it. There's no, when I'm at an open mic, there is no other place that I'd rather be than performing comedy. I've never had a set where I've just been like, man, I can't believe that. What? Every time I always go up in front of, I'm like, why is it that all of your guys' sets took 2 years and mine's over in 10 seconds? Like, I always feel like everyone else's set took forever, and I just got here.
Yes.
Yeah. Why are you lighting me all of a sudden? Why everyone else got 40
That's a
minutes?
Beautiful feeling, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the whole concept, and that's
You're
why
in love with it. Yeah. Yeah.
And if you find that,
Yeah.
I interviewed AC/DC one time, and they sat there and they go, "You're one of the biggest bands in the world. You sell out stadiums," and they go, "That was never the point. It was we did music that we loved, and if it meant that for 50 years we just played clubs, we were like, that's a great life."
Yeah.
It just happened to be that we hit a nerve. We were right place, right time, and we became a big giant band that made a lot of money for it.
It was a byproduct.
Yeah, the success is a byproduct of you doing it right every day.
100%.
And again, I love the concept that where you're like, hey, what happens if I die at 30? I always have this concept where people sit there, like, there's 2 ways you can always look at it. Oh, we're all going to die. Or, hey, we're all going to die.
Yeah.
Both are true, both are whatever. But one is a negative. I can't believe everything means nothing. Hey, everything means nothing.
Right.
What do I care? Who cares if I bomb tonight? Everything means nothing.
Yeah.
Oh my God, who can let's just do it. And if you have that attitude, you become, dare I say, unbeatable. I said one time to a comic, I go, and he goes, well, what happens if you don't make it? I go, there's only 2 things. There's only 2 results of this. Either I get exactly what I want out of this or I die. Either or, who cares?
And you're guaranteed death. So why not?
I'm guaranteed death, but if the last breath I ever take is I did it everything I wanted to do and I'm cool with it.
Yeah.
Great. What a life. Most people don't. I start open mic sometimes with like, guys, do you realize we're the luckiest sons of bitches in the world? Most people do not get to actually ever try something that they love.
Yeah.
Life takes them in a way to where they sit there and all of a sudden they're like, man, I'm the VP of marketing for Ritz Crackers in Columbus, Ohio. That's not what you wanted to be. I wanted to be in movies. I wanted to be a football coach. I wanted to be doing comedy. I wanted to be doing something else. That's the worst thing in the world, when you're waking up every day living out a life that you didn't want to live. But if you're living the life you want to live and you don't become Jerry Seinfeld, who cares?
That is the battle, because I feel like these days, especially, society makes you feel like there's a metric of success that can be measured: net worth, fame, followers, likes. But the actual metric of success is yourself, because you're the only person that's living inside of you. Nobody else is.
A guy told me this quote. He goes, "Always keep score in life, but don't let someone else tell you what game you're playing."
Right. Yeah.
Like if you sit there and be like, the point is to the point in life is to get likes and followers. Great. Now you're playing that person's game. If your game is, no, I want to wake up every morning going, thank God I'm me.
Make your own game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? I had 5 people come up to me after a show and say, "Hey man, that was great. Boom. I won."
Yeah.
That's a win.
Absolutely.
You know, and there's always going to be haters. There's always going to be negatives. There's always going to be. I remember this a couple weeks ago. I went up at the open mic at the Improv, and immediately afterwards, the booker booked me for hosting a show in the lab. Mm-hmm. Great. I was so happy. I go to the bar with my buddies. We're celebrating. We're sitting there laughing, all this kind of stuff. A comic comes up to us and sits there, and they go, "Hey, Mike's going to host this weekend." And this comic goes, "Main room or lab?"
Really?
And he goes, "Lab." She goes, "Oh, okay." Almost like, there's a bigger room for you. And it took every ounce of my civility not to be like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you want to make yourself miserable? There's a ton of rich people that are miserable. There's a ton of successful people that are miserable because they let someone else. There are billionaires. People that have more money than they could ever spend who are pissed off because they go to the billionaire club and, oh, I only have 4 billion. He has 20 billion. He's 5 times more powerful than me.
Yeah.
Like, really? Really? Yeah. You know?
Well, yeah, it tells you that the process is really the destination, right? And that's what I think people learn too late in life.
I'm very happy that I at least learned it at one point to where I could act on it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's at the end of the day, we're all just legends.
I'll tell you a story. I think we learned a very tough lesson with Sarah Silverman, actually. Okay. And so we never told this on air, but so we wrote, I don't know where it's at. We wrote a script. It's a pilot, right? Like 60 pages. And we were going to the writer strikes because in hopes to meet.
We're trying to network.
Yeah, we're trying to network. That was the whole goal.
So is the most of those people at those. I know people that literally were not writers that would show up to them, and literally just be walking around. It was a networking event.
It was,
and I was just like, oh, God, I have a life. I have things to do. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, we did, right? So we did. We didn't have.
I was mocking you driving when it was like honking. I was just kind of like, loser.
So we're there trying to network, trying to meet people. Goal was, okay, maybe we'll meet somebody big enough to make this pilot happen.
Cool.
That was the story, okay?
Do it.
We're out there, we're in front of Netflix, walking around, fuck Netflix, this and that with these pitchforks. Mm-hmm. Sarah Silverman comes about, we look at each other, and we do absolutely zilch. We don't go up to her, we're looking at each other. He's like, we're rotating. We're like, oh yeah, we passed her again. We're gonna go talk to her.
But it was like a circle. So it was like
so we literally keep seeing each other,
and we kept talking to each other. Should we go up? Should we go up?
And the craziest part is, after about an hour and a half, 2 hours, we take off. We're like, okay, nothing happened, right? We're walking to the car. And I swear to God, dude, I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, if she's behind us, I'm gonna say something. She is fucking walking behind us with her, and I don't know if it's her husband or whatever it was. Walking behind us and said nothing.
And we stared at her, and she stared right back at us for like a good 5 seconds.
And neither of us said nothing, bro.
We said 0 words.
And that was one of the biggest lessons of my life because I am afraid to talk to another fucking individual, bro, about the entire goal of going to a fucking writer strike is to meet somebody that.
No, the goal of the writer strike was to get a living wage, but
my goal. I'm not a writers guild.
Yeah, but
it was to pay bills. So we just went there.
Yeah. First off, that's why.
Yes.
Number one rule of whenever you meet someone that's well known. Someone said this, treat normal people like they're celebrities and treat celebrities like they're normal people.
100%.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So,
Agreed.
Now I do play this game in my head.
Yeah.
Where I sit there and I go, okay, if I ever met Sarah Silverman, like I really met her, what would I bring up? How would I humanize? How would I do something like, has she ever been to a place I've been to? Where is she from? What has she done? All this kind of stuff. And so there is a game that you play with it because, like, I have had really good conversations with, decently well-known comics because you'll just kind of, that's one of the things with comics, like, they'll go up to someone and just, the most you should ever do to a fellow comic, doesn't matter if it's, freaking Bill Burr, you just sit there and be like, hey, good stuff.
Yeah.
Because then eventually, because if you go up to someone and fist bump, you say, I've done it.
Shit.
You're like, hey, good stuff, man. Yeah. And then thanks. That's all you want.
Yeah.
That's it, and so it's one time the weirdest one I ever had was I was at the Improv. I had done an opening set there. I'm at the bar. All of a sudden, I feel this tap on my shoulder. I turn around and it's Chris D'Elia. And he sits there and goes, hey, man, good stuff. And it took every ounce of me not just to go, ah! But it was like, I just want to be like, get away from me.
Yeah.
But, like, that's the thing. Sarah Silverman is a human being. Yes. She's a person. Yes. She shits, she farts, she cusses, whatever. In that moment, she was just like, what are these two weirdos looking? Do I know these two?
You're right.
Should I have said something? Am I the weird one? Did I meet them? Are they the sons of somebody that I know? Is this, what should I have, she's literally going home with her husband, boyfriend, whoever, friend who she was with, going like, should I have known those two kids? Should I have gone up to those two kids? Should I have done this? I mean, like that. And so you have to kind of, that's where, like, again, one of the cool things that, you can do is you just kind of just being like, that's when you sit there and you go up to her and just being like, this is a hell of a networking event. And then she'll probably just be like, yeah, that's the only reason I'm here.
Nobody's talking to me.
No one's talking to me. Yeah. I guess I'm a nobody. I thought I'd get here and people be kissing my ass. Jesus. But again, that's what's cool about, like, that's what you like talk about LA. It is this concept of, like, when you're not here, all of a sudden the Comedy Store becomes like a symbol. It's like, the White House.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden it's like, it's a building in West Hollywood. It's,
it's another building.
It's a building in West Hollywood. It's a cool building in West Hollywood. It's a building in West Hollywood. Like, you sit there and be like, oh, there's Sarah Silverman. Yeah, it's a person named Sarah. Like, I've met people that started with her. And so she'll come up to me like, hey, Dave, hey, Sarah, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, that's the messed up thing about, like, as much, like, you think about the peer group of open mic comics. Someone in that group will do something. Something good, something bad, something weird, something amazing, so whatever. But it will just be like, to somebody, like, you ever have someone who'll just be like, oh my God, Sarah Silverman. And then all of a sudden be like, you mean Sarah?
Right.
The person that, we hung out 25 years ago and sang songs at 2 a.m. at a guy's bar, she's a human being. But that's the fucked up part about this is like you ever sit there and say, what would, not a fear, but something you'd have to overcome if you become well known, is that now all of a sudden you become something that, like, okay, this person knows someone that could change my life. This person could make the phone call that could make my entire thing happen.
Yeah.
And the worst thing you could do is go up to him and be like, Sarah, you're my favorite. I love you so much. Because then you're a fan. You're like, oh, thank you very much. And then whatever. The cool thing is, like, if you have a friend who knows him and then you connect that way and then you just fuck around.
Best way. Yeah.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden you're like, yeah, this person's whatever. Yeah. And then, this person's cool. And then all of a sudden you can be like, yeah. Then you work into it where you're just kind of like, yeah, I just can't want this strike to be over because I got this thing I wrote and it's being looked at. Oh, what is it about? Mm-hmm. It's about this. Oh, that sounds funny. I'd love to read that. That's
a natural.
Yeah, that's a natural kind of thing you work in.
Of course.
But I like the concept that you just made her feel weird.
Yeah. Hey, that was unique, right?
Yeah. Now I have a story. There you go. It's an experience. There you go.
The thing is, if you just act cool around them, they're like, who's this guy? It actually intrigues them because they're like, why is this person not having like a fan moment? Like, why are they acting so cool?
Have you had this experience before?
Yes. Now I've had this experience.
Who would you have this experience with?
It was me.
Yes, it was Mike Sasson. I don't want to say the guy's name.
Yeah.
Who is it, bro?
I've told you before, man.
Oh, but okay, but he wasn't like, oh, this guy. He wasn't like looking at you, bro. Like, oh shit, this guy's a man.
He was for a little bit.
Shut the fuck up, bro.
The weirdest part about being tall and playing college football is oftentimes I will say something like that, and then the famous person will be like, "Oh, that's really cool. Tell me about that." But like, "Oh, you're famous." Oh, but you've never met a guy who did that. So that's what's so one of the coolest things.
College football.
Shit. So when I was working, when I was in college, I played football at UConn. Over the summer, they hired the UConn football team to be security guards at like the big music venue in Hartford.
Okay.
And for 3 days, Dave Matthews Band was performing. And so I made friends with their head of security because their head of security played in the NFL. He played for the Patriots. And so he kind of took a liking to us because he was a football guy. We were a football guy, whatever. So on Saturday, he comes up to me. We're all sitting around. He goes, "Mike, I have a special job for you." And I go, "Okay, whatever." I walk over. He brings me into the dining hall. And it's all this food, you know, they have professional chefs, all this kind of stuff. And he sits me at the foot of the beginning of the thing. He goes, "Anybody that doesn't have one of these passes is not allowed to eat at this thing. I'm going to keep you here for lunch. You're here for the next 2 hours. Anybody without a pass, you tell them they can't eat." Well, who do you think didn't have a pass? The band. But I knew who was in Dave Matthews Band, so like they would come up, like the drummer would come up and I'd be like, "You're allowed." He goes, "Oh, I don't have a pass." Like, "I know you're the drummer." He goes, "Oh, thank you." Whatever. So after like an hour and a half, the guy comes up to me and goes, "Hey, everyone looks like everyone ate. Everything go cool?" I go, "Yeah, everything was cool. You know who didn't have a pass, though? The band." And his face just turns like, You didn't stop the band from eating, did you?" I go, "No, I know who they are." He goes, "Oh, you saved my ass. If you would have stopped the band from eating, that would have been such a whatever." And so he sits there and goes, "Well, have at it." So he, like the entire thing was just for me.
Oh, nice.
So I go prime rib and they go a couple things of pie and all this kind of stuff. So I sit down and I'm just munching down. So all of a sudden, who walks in? Dave Matthews. He gets like a little plate and it's just me and him. So he sits there and he's just like, "Good stuff, huh?" And I go, "Yeah, good stuff, man." And he goes, "Yeah, I got the chef off from this tour and blah, blah, blah." And I go, "Oh, that's cool." He goes, "So where are you from?" I'm like, "Oh, Pittsburgh." He goes, "Oh, we're going to Pittsburgh next." And he goes, "Oh, yeah." I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Yeah, I play football up here." He goes, "Oh, you play football?" I go, "Yeah, yeah." And for a half hour, I just want to know shit about me. Because to him, he's like, "Yeah, I know musicians. I don't know a football player who's, you know, going to be here for the next half hour because he's eating prime rib in front of me." So that's what's kind of cool, where you sit there and you have to realize, to one of these people, you have a very interesting existence. "Oh, I'm doing comedy." "Oh, that's cool. Where are you doing comedy?" Blah, 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 blah. So don't ever like shortchange yourself around quote unquote a celebrity. Right. Oftentimes, yeah, they got famous for one thing, but they've never been to one of these places. They never did, you know, all this kind of stuff. So, and again, don't shortchange yourself, kind of deal.
That's
like
good,
you bring value to the conversation just by existing. Like
you just by existing,
experiences.
Yeah, you have experiences. You have different things that you've done, and again, especially if it's an artist. Artists love stories. Artists want experiences. Artists love like little things because then they can
people.
They can. There's a reason why like actors go hang out with cops when they're gonna play a cop. They have to, find the motivation. Find it. So if someone sits there and goes, "Oh yeah, I'm a student at USC and I graduated last year and my parents are this," and my mom says, "Oh, okay, what does that feel like?" They just eat all that up like it's biscuits and gravy. Yeah, absolutely.
And everybody likes talking about themselves, right? So if a celebrity's interested in you, you're probably like, "I'm definitely going to talk about myself to them."
It takes a lot for them to not talk, and you do the talking.
Well, but like how much, like again, that's one of the things about what people forget about, like someone said, it was Bruno Kirby told a story about Elvis. And he sat there and he goes, "Elvis got to be richer than he's ever fathomed, and he got to perform music and be Elvis Presley. But his bargain with God was everywhere he went in his life, everyone would remember every moment that they had an interaction with him."
Yeah.
Yes.
So like Elvis could never just like sneak in and sneak out. Like it doesn't matter. Like you ever heard a story where someone's like, "Oh my God, I saw Brad Pitt. What did he do? He walked into 7-Eleven and he grabbed an energy drink and he walked out." Like, "Oh my God, that's amazing. What was the energy drink?" "Oh, it was a Monster energy drink, purple." Like
what were you wearing that day?
Yeah, what was he wearing? Oh, he was a purple shirt with blue pants. Oh, what an asshole.
Yeah, they never forget, huh?
Yeah, exactly. And so when you're famous, you have to live in a world where like every time you go do something,
It's gonna be documented.
it's gonna be, they're gonna remember every moment, everything you said. That's why when you ever go like online, be like, I met so and so, they were a jerk. They walked into the store and they were mad because someone took a crap on their car. Yeah, someone took a crap on their car and now they're mad.
And it's passed down generation to generation.
Yeah.
Like, you know, somebody's going to be, my grandpa saw Elvis Presley when he was a douchebag to me. And that story is going to go on for generations. It's crazy.
But it's weird, one of those stories. And it actually taught me a lot about like being positive and realizing the power that you have. So a buddy of mine's dad worked at the Pittsburgh Civic Arena, which was like the crypto of Pittsburgh. It was just way like the Penguins played, and so all the big concerts went there: Led Zeppelin, Rolling Stones, everything like that. He was the biggest Frank Sinatra's fan in the world. So all of a sudden, the biggest moment, Frank Sinatra was going to perform at the Pittsburgh Civic Arena. So he saw his rider, and in his rider, Frank Sinatra got handed like this really expensive bottle of booze an hour before showtime. So he made it that he was going to be the guy to hand him this bottle of booze.
Yeah.
So he's dressed to the nines. He's like, oh my God, I'm going to meet Frank Sinatra. This is going to be amazing. He knocks on the door. All of a sudden he hears, come in. Opens the door. No one's in the room except Frank Sinatra. He's got his hand right this. And he's in front of that mirror with like the lights around it and everything like that.
Typical celebrity.
Yeah. So he walks in and he's just kind of like, Frank's like this. He goes, Mr. Sinatra, I have your bottle of blah, blah, blah. And he just goes. And he goes, okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Put the bottle down. Frank looks at him, just gives him a kind of a hey. And he goes, well, Mr. Sinatra, have a great show. It's look forward to seeing you perform. Thank you very much. And so he starts to back out, turns around. All of a sudden, he sits there and goes, Charlie. And he turns around, and Frank Sinatra is standing there, full tuxedo, arms open like this, looks at him and goes, Charlie, thank you very much for doing this. You did a great job. This place is a class place. It's why I always love performing in Pittsburgh. They got class people like you working here. Thank you very much for doing that. Shake your hand. You need an autograph. Thank you very much. Charlie, thank you. And you're a champion.
Was Frank Sinatra retarded?
Yeah. But Frank Sinatra knew at that moment that he had let that guy down. He realized that he had not given him. He realized at that moment, this was his moment. This was his day.
10 minutes later.
And he had to turn it on for 20 seconds because his deal was he gets to be Frank Sinatra.
Yes.
But he can't be off.
Yeah.
So he had to sit there and he had to turn into Frank for 20 seconds because this guy, and the thing was, he goes, my dad, to the day he died, lived in the moment that Frank Sinatra called him a champion.
Really?
He goes, Frank Sinatra called me a champion. Unbelievable. He peaked at that moment. But that's the thing. If you become Frank Sinatra,
you have to.
With a word, with a, hey, man, thank you. Thank you. You're a hell of a guy.
You're a hero.
But you made his life. You made everything about him.
That is insane.
I mean, think about having that power.
Yes.
That's
to
insane.
where you could just sit there and be like, hey, man, and the funny thing is, you never realize. There's been so many times where I've gone up to another comic and been like, hey, man, good stuff. And they've told me 6 months later, man, say, I had a string of bad mics. I had a string of bad moments. You came up to me and said, hey, good stuff. And it literally picked me up for a couple months. You don't realize how the power you have.
Yeah.
You don't realize a positivity of just being like, hey, man, I've been noticing. You got good stuff.
Yeah.
Really? Someone's noticing? Someone actually realized that I'm trying and I did this and is paying it? Because how much time do we go up there and we realize no one's paying attention?
We're all alone in our heads.
Yeah, we're all in our own head.
Yeah.
No one's really. Someone goes, hey, man, That's actually good stuff.
It's very important to do that as an artist. When you genuinely see something that's good and you appreciate it and admire it, like instead of keeping it to yourself, you should tell the person and say, listen, good job. I really connected with this, and not just give like a, like be genuine about it. And that will go such a long way. It's your job, I feel like, to be, if you see something that's good, recognize it. Otherwise, you're kind of being selfish. You're keeping it to yourself.
Or you're too cool.
Or you think you're in competition.
Oh yeah,
that's the other thing that always gets me is we goes, oh, I can't tell this person they're good because then I become bad. No,
you can both.
You can be both be good. You can, there's more than one good comic in the world. There's more than one good singer in the world.
100, yeah.
Yeah, it's so only 100, but
probably less comedians. If you talk about internationally selling. Regular touring comedians, probably 50.
Ain't that the shit though about it? Yeah. Ain't that the thing about it?
That competitive, yeah.
Where you sit there, but it's not even. I think ultimately, when you sit there and you're like, I was at Flappers once, and a guy literally like got introduced, and someone goes, that guy's like the Louis C.K. of Nigeria. And I'm like,
of Djibouti.
Yeah, but the funny thing is, like,
you've heard that before?
Yeah, oh god, that guy's Kevin Hart in Nigeria.
Yeah,
and you're just like, oh, well, but then you look, Nigeria is a country of 300 million people.
That's a lot. Like,
that's
a big deal.
If you're a big deal in Nigeria, but we're so like in our I've never heard of you.
Nigeria has 300 million people?
Something like that.
Yeah.
I think,
Holy shit.
There are a lot of Nigerians in the world.
Wow.
And that guy's their number one comic.
Great.
And he was performing on a show with me. What a low point for that guy. It's like this guy's on a podcast in front of freaking like fake vines, and I can't get anything.
I told him to get real vines, dude.
Honestly, if you had real vines in here, that'd kind of be weird. Because it would be like,
hey, bro, whose side are you on here?
The right side.
The fake vine side.
The thing about it is real vines indoors.
Yeah.
In wherever the hell we are. In where? Norwalk? Downey? Whatever. Downey.
Or in a warehouse.
Yeah. That'd be really odd if you're like, every day I come here and I water I water my real vines in my podcast.
It's weird if you have a podcast in Downey in a warehouse.
Why? Where do you think they do podcasts?
Not in Downey.
Why not?
Every guest we've had on here have literally said, "Wow, where are we? Where are we?" They literally say that, and we've had like
where is anybody?
60 guests.
Where's anybody? It took you 60 to get to me. But
where did you always have this amazingly positive attitude?
No.
When did you start to develop? Because you're the first. We've had so many comedians.
Yes.
Moments ago on the way here.
Gen Z podcast.
We've interviewed so many comedians on the podcast. Not just comedians, like people from all walks of life. This is like episode 95, I think, right? 94?
Yeah, 96.
And it's very rare that somebody's genuinely positive. So I am curious, like where or what point in your life, what led you to the point where you are today in terms of your positive mindset?
Learning that negativity doesn't get you anywhere. Learning the hard way that ultimately, if there's anything I could tell to anybody, deal with your shit. Deal with your shit. Like, you got shit with your parents, deal with it. You got shit with women, men, whatever, deal with it. Drop your luggage. Because it's not helping. And I was very lucky in that I had some real, moments of clarity that ultimately got me to a point to where negativity doesn't get you anywhere. Like, that's why when someone sits there and goes, well, what about if this doesn't happen? Does that help me? Does that get me to where I want to be?
Yeah.
No. And I also think that, like, if your goal in life is to be miserable, it's an easy goal to achieve. It's not. You can make yourself miserable every moment of every day, or you could legitimately wake up in the morning and just be like, "Hey, I got air in my lungs. It's sunny. Let's go get it." Mm-hmm. And there were a lot of dark days. Okay, I didn't start doing stand-up until I was like 34, 35 years old. It took me a while to get to that point to where I could do it. And that's why, I tell college kids, I'm like, whatever you think that you'll be at 30 or wherever you think you'll be at 25 or whatever at 35,
you're wrong.
You're not only are you wrong, I hope you are wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, in my life, God's batting 1,000. A lot of things that I thought I wanted when I was 22, 23 years old, I wouldn't be living the life I am if I'd have gotten it. If I'd have gotten that girl I wanted at 22, I'd be, I'd be the head of a Ford dealership in Erie, Pennsylvania, married and 4 kids and all that kind of stuff, hoping and thinking, man, could I ever been a comedian? Could I have ever done it?
Did you always want to be a comedian?
The funny thing about it is I remember on my report card when you were a freshman, you could
high school or college?
High school. You could put what you wanted to be, and it would be on your report card.
Okay.
And everyone put like doctor, lawyer, dentist, whatever. I just as a goof put comic, and I didn't even think anything of it.
Yeah.
I was just like, I always did it as like a look. I put comic.
I'm different.
Yeah, I'm different. You put doctor. I put.
So you didn't actually mean it.
I didn't think I did at the moment. Like, my dad one time was watching like George Carlin on HBO, and he pulls me over and he looks at me and he just goes, "I think you could do that." I'm like 12. It didn't mean anything about it, but like some people might have seen more in me than I saw myself. Because I think, especially when you grow up in a place like Pittsburgh, the whole concept is be real. Doctor, lawyer, dentist, be this. Because
it's like a Midwestern mentality.
Well, it's anytime I hear, again, people from India, Pakistan, whatever, they say, "Oh, my mom tells me this," and I'm like, yeah, they don't know. They're trying to direct you in the life that they know.
It doesn't exist for them, right?
Yeah, it's like saying I'm going to go run away and join the circus. Like that's not a life. What are you talking about?
Right.
And so, but you have to go like, no. I need to go follow my path. This is where it's going. I don't know where it's going, but I have to find it. And it took me multiple years to get to a point to where I'd be like, oh, I feel comfortable up here. Like, I understand when someone sits there and be like, oh, I'm an artist. Like when I'm on stage, you'd be like, are you nervous? No, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. I'm doing exactly what I want to be doing. That's why when someone goes, you seem so confident on stage, I'm not even thinking at that moment. At that exact moment, I'm just in a place where I've worked hard enough and I'm exactly where I want to be. And so how did I get to that point? A lot of dark days, a lot of dark moments, a lot of dark things, but getting to a point to where I dealt with my shit. I got better. I'm nowhere close to where I want to be. I'm still a work in progress, as we all are, but realizing that you can get better and things can be better. That's why when everybody talks about like, oh, I'm in college and I'm so sad, I'm just like, dude, there's tomorrow.
What did you think you wanted to be in college?
Oh, I was going to be Gordon Gekko. I was going to be Mr. Businessman. I was going to be the CEO of, whatever. Because all my friends were like, that's what you do. You go I was going to be a salesman and I was going to be the Fortune 500 CFO. And that's what I was supposed to be. Because that means that's true. That's something that could happen. Yeah. And everyone goes, oh yeah, you're that's who you are. You're the guy who runs things. You're the guy who wears the suit and walks in and shakes everyone's hands. And that's what you are. And to sit there and to say to somebody, no, I'm not going to be that. It's weird. Especially if you could do it. Yeah. It does make people go, well,
why wouldn't you?
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you go be the CEO if you could? Because I'd be playing a character. I realized that I was a comedian playing football.
In college, you realized
In college.
this.
I was a comedian playing football.
You realized this in college?
Not when I was in college.
Oh.
It's like, I'm a football player.
Right.
Okay.
But I realized afterwards, like, oh, no, I'm a comedian playing football. Because a comedian, a lot of people don't even understand what that means. A comedian is someone who just notices shit that no one else notices. A comedian is just someone who sits there and, the whole world passes by and you point and go, what about this?
You're just Sherlock Holmes. Yeah.
Yeah. You're just you got an eye.
You're not Sherlock Holmes, brother. I'll tell you that much.
Notice I blew right past that. I didn't even want to bring it up. I didn't be like, yeah, you're not at all Sherlock
I
Holmes.
had to bring this up and tell him he is not Sherlock Holmes. He is not the Pakistani Sherlock Holmes.
He's the Pakistani Sherlock. Honestly, if that was the script you were going to sell to fucking Sarah Silverman, I think she'd have bought that. Be like, I'm Pakistani. I solve mysteries. That's actually honestly
basically RDJ.
Well, no, you are solving mysteries though, because a joke is a riddle. It's the mystery of your bit. There's like mystery in there that you have to.
It's the
go on stage to find.
I agree with you in this. I view it as you're more of a prosecuting attorney and you're trying to essentially defend the undefensible.
So you're not Sherlock Holmes, is what you're saying.
You can be Sherlock Holmes.
You're like a Robert Kardashian.
You can be whatever you want, right? You can be whatever
except Sherlock Holmes.
Except
everything up until that point.
Yeah. I think the attorney resonates pretty well with him.
OJ's lawyer.
Okay,
OJ's lawyer.
What?
OJ's. He wasn't even OJ's lawyer. He's OJ's friend, and then just got to sit at the table. You know what's amazing about that? You guys weren't even born for the OJ trial, but you know more about the OJ trial than anything. You want to talk about when you feel old?
That's I
tell you, one of those moments that you never forget was I was in college the day of the OJ verdict, the day that he was the Bronco chase. I was at a graduation party. I was a junior in high school. It was June. I remember I was watching the NBA finals with the dad of the person whose house it was having the graduation party because I was watching the NBA finals with him. And then in October of my freshman year of college was when the verdict came out. So that's how long it was. Yeah. So then eventually everyone thought they were going to say guilty. Everyone thought he was going to be guilty. When he said not guilty, people, again, I was 18 years old at the time, so I'm like, hey, that's fucking stupid. And then then I walked into my locker room, in which 70% of my teammates are black. Holy shit, were they happy?
Oh,
they were. I mean, the music was blaring. On the whiteboard, it said "The juice is loose." People were just going nuts, like whoa! Yeah! It got so nuts that our coach had to call an immediate team meeting, and he had to sit there and be like, "Okay, guys, we have a game this Saturday. We have to practice. I understand that we are all very either excited or sad of what just happened." And someone in the back sat there. No, I think we all liked OJ because he was a football player. Yeah, we're kind of like, hey, if we get good at this, we can do anything we want.
Right. Well, yeah. And crime should be something that's like definitely nonpartisan, right? Like you shouldn't be happy or sad.
I don't know if you've ever been to America. But
fair. Very fair.
Fame and money kind of help you out with that. But yeah, literally, then someone from the back of the room goes, "Coach, what do you think?" And he looks at it and he goes, "There's a difference between innocent and not guilty." All right, practice at 4. And we're just like, all right, that's the end of it. Wow. But the fact that people weren't even around for that and people still know enough about it. My brother, who's about like he's in his 20s, he sat there and when he was watching the documentary, he called me up and he goes, "So OJ would be like if Shaq killed somebody." And I'm like, yeah, that's about it. It'd be like if you just woke up today and be like, you know, Shaq's wife's dead. And then like 4 days later, he'd be like,
that would be
you know
insane.
that they want Shaq for the murder?
That would
you know insane. Shaq is driving down the 405 with a gun to his head
and a white Bronco.
And a white Bronco. But that's what it was. It was literally like someone of Shaq. I mean, a guy was on TV, guy who was in the whatever. And on Monday, He was the lovable, everybody loves him. And by Friday, he had a gun to his head on national TV during the NBA Finals. And we're all just like, what the fuck?
Yeah, wow.
That 9/11 were the two most like, what the fuck?
Really? That and 9/11.
Well, it was a moment where you're just kind of like, I can't believe it. All right, so I've told this story on stage. That's when I know how old I am, because like when I first started doing comedy, everyone would be like, what were you doing on 9/11? Now someone would be like, then it got to, I was in Mrs. Carruthers' kindergarten class. Yeah. Now it's to like, my dad told me the story, and I'm like, all right, fuck. So I had graduated from college. I had a real job. I had made a couple sales calls. I was in the drive-through at a McDonald's. I was listening to Howard Stern on the radio talk about getting a lap dance from Pamela Anderson. God, what? And then all of a sudden, Baba Booey comes into the room and says, boss, someone just flew a plane into the World Trade Center. Now, at that moment, you didn't know if it was an accident.
Yeah.
If it was a Cessna or something. That's when the second plane hit, that's when officially it was like, oh shit, something's up.
You're right.
And again, I just graduated from the University of Connecticut, so a lot of my buddies went to work in New York. So one of my buddies called me, and I didn't get the message. So I'm sitting there going like, oh shit, is he in the trade set? Is what's going on? And then, so I call him up, and I go, hey buddy, are you okay? And he goes, oh, I'm in Connecticut. Are you just seeing this shit? He hadn't talked to me in like a year, but he just had to call someone and be like, are you seeing this shit?
Oh, sure.
And then again, remember, a plane crashed in Western Pennsylvania. I'm in Pittsburgh.
Oh, that's right.
So everyone was just kind of like, what are we going to be crashing? Is there going to be planes crashing into every building in every major city in the country?
Yeah.
And I literally had to call the customers that I was going to go visit that afternoon saying like, hey, I don't think it's appropriate that we have a sales call. Like, yeah, totally understand. And then for the next 3 days, you just watched the news and they would just kind of like, and they would just keep showing it and just keep doing it. And then just like for 3-4 days, we were all just kind of like, yeah, what the fuck just happened? What the fuck just, and then like literally for like 4 days, like what the fuck just happened?
And everybody was like this.
Everybody was just like, well, what the fuck just happened? Because, and the other thing is that everyone thought that this was now going to be a routine occurrence. Everybody thought that like, oh, you know, there's going to be planes crashing into buildings every couple of weeks. Like no one knew that was going to be kind of a one-off. Everyone thought that there were going to be many 9/11s. If you'd have told someone in 2001 that in 2025 that there'd been no more planes crashing into buildings, they'd be like,
until 2025.
Yeah, get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here.
Imagine if social media existed in 2001. I think the paranoia would have been way worse.
Well, I could not imagine if people were live streaming when they're in the building.
Oh, like streaming, they're just
like
hey,
going like, yeah, I'm.
Thank you for 1 million subscribers.
Yeah,
boom.
Oh my god. But that's the fucked up part about it. The thing that I had a buddy who was an EMT in New York at that.
Oh.
And he would tell it fucked him up. It got him into like comedy and all that kind of stuff because he was an EMT and he sat there and he goes, Mike, people were calling up because they were seeing people jump out of the buildings.
Yeah.
And they were calling up. He goes, oh, did you guys set up nets?
That is insane.
And they had to tell him like, no. I'd be like, well, I just saw a bunch of people, and they had to realize like, oh, no, there's no nets. Like that's how fucked up. Like that's that, and it screwed him up for the rest of his. He's just like people just kind of like calling up EMTs, going like, yeah, how are you getting to us? And they're like,
we don't know. We're not.
I don't know if we can.
Yeah.
Like that's when you talk about like holy shit moments, but that's, if there's anything that, again, Gen Z, when anybody ever sits there and goes like, whoa, your generation, like you've never known a world before the internet, before 9/11, before wars, before Trump, before all this kind of stuff, when like the 90s.
Trump is the new metric.
Yeah.
It is kind of a new metric.
Yeah. He's been in
yeah. I mean, like Trump has been in our national consciousness as a president for like 10, 12 years. Yeah. Like he's almost been the president continuously. Even when he wasn't the president, he was still the president. Like everyone would check with him for shit. And the fucked up part about it is like you sit there and be like, yeah, they're just, you know, they're just weird and they don't do this, that, and the other thing. I'm like, think of the world you guys have lived in comparatively. Like, things that we thought were a big deal in the 90s totally weren't a big fucking deal. Like, totally, like...
The OJ trial being one.
Well, the OJ trial was just kind of like something that it was like a
weird.
national weird story.
Yeah.
And
It
think
makes
about what
sense.
came from that.
Yeah.
The Kardashians came from that.
Yeah.
God,
You know,
damn.
so they, you know, Court TV and that, you know, and all that kind of
history.
stuff all came from
That's
that moment.
crazy.
There's so many things that came from that, and so many things that we still to this day have to take off our shoes in the airport. Why? 9/11.
Yeah.
We, you know, we. It used to be like you'd go to the airport, you'd go through security like in 2 seconds. It was nothing. It was just you'd go through the thing and be like, "You got a gun on you?" No. All right, cool.
They would ask you, do you have a gun on you?
I mean, even if you did, you'd be like, "Oh, I left it there." Like, all right, cool. It's like dropping off
Yeah.
like your freaking shampoo. Like,
Right.
"Yeah, there you go.
Were concealed carries allowed on planes before?
In Texas.
In Texas. I was like, wait.
But that's
this
the
day, they're still around. Yeah.
But that's the fucked up part about it is like you sit there and be like, you talk about this generation of not knowing. Like, I tell this will freak you out. Like, I remember when the article came out describing the internet. They called it the information superhighway. And I remember having to explain to my dad what it was. Like, he sat there and this guy ran a business, very smart man, had an MBA, all this kind of stuff. And he sat there and he goes, I keep on hearing about this thing called the internet. And I go, yeah. He goes, what the hell is it? And I go, it's all the computers in the world connected to each other so you have every piece of information instantaneously at your fingertips. He goes, what do you mean? He goes, if you want to know what the temperature is right now in Sydney, Australia, you'll be able to find out what the temperature is in Sydney, Australia right now. And he looked at me and he goes, that sounds like a gigantic waste of time.
Really?
Yeah. And I go, probably. But like the concept of like what, you know, what do you know, let's read the newspaper for Tokyo right now. That was when I played college football, my parents had not understand what the internet was. So they would get the Hartford Courant on like Monday because our score would be in it. And they would send me the articles in mail.
Mail. Oh, wow.
And I had to eventually explain to her, like, yeah, I've read this already.
You're right.
I've read the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette already. It's online. They didn't understand that. They thought that the only way you could read the newspaper is if you physically
had it,
had the newspaper.
Wow, what a different world.
Yeah, this is a fucked up thing.
That's fucked
So,
up as is.
in 1995, I was a freshman at UConn. For you to know what the score was of the UConn football game, you had to watch headline news. And they found out that every 12 minutes when the game was on, the score would come over. So my dad and my mom, if they wanted to know what was happening in the UConn UMass game, would literally watch headline news for 3 hours so that every 12 minutes they would get an update about the UConn football score.
Holy shit.
Now think about that world
that's
where
insane.
if you wanted to know what was going on.
That attention span.
Yes. To
Extinct
watch
now.
to watch headline news
Right.
for 3.5 hours. That's why when you'd sit there and people would talk about, like, if you lived in you know, in Pittsburgh and you wanted to know who won the Dodger Giant game, you'd have to wait till the next day to get the newspaper. Hopefully it ended before they went to press. Because they would sit there and be like, the score of this game did not
right.
end before they came to the press. That's why you'd have afternoon editions. Because that would have the score of the Dodger Giant game in it, because the morning one printed at 2 a.m. on the East Coast.
Shit.
So, but think about like not having that much information.
Yeah, it sucks.
And so, and amazing about how much we thought the world, like we just thought it was going to be like, oh, you like Star Wars. I like Star Wars. We'll talk about Star Wars together. They didn't think it was, you're a white supremacist. I'm a white supremacist. We'll get all the white supremacists together so that we'll talk to each other and all that kind of good stuff. They didn't see the negative yet. They just thought it was going to be, oh, well, I'll just be. And I remember this as clear as day. You want to talk about not knowing what the fuck was going to happen? Again, I was in school in the late 90s. And a guy in class, we're all going on what we're going to do after college. And a guy goes, I'm going to Silicon Valley to go work on the internet. And my teacher, swear to God, he goes, isn't all done? Isn't that all been figured out? And he goes, no, there's a lot of stuff. Remember, this is pre-Google, pre-Instagram, pre-social media, pre-everything like that. Pre-everything. And he sits there and goes, isn't that already done? Hasn't everything already been, why go out there? It's already happened.
It's peaked.
It's already peaked.
Wow.
And he didn't see it.
It was just the beginning.
But to see and to know that and to have that perspective, that's different than when you sit there and be like, oh no, it's always been this way.
Yeah.
That's the fucked up thing. Like the fact that you could go on social media, it's almost like you've never left your hometown. Like you're just sitting there going, Facebook has been around for 15 years. It started when I was in high school, and now I have kids. It's like the purpose. Why would you go to a class reunion? I know what your daughter looks like. I saw her prom photo the other day. I know what your dog looks like. I see him every freaking day. Why would why we got to go physically talk to each other? We've been in each other's lives since we were in middle school.
Yeah. Every day I look at your Instagram story.
Yeah. I know exactly what you're doing. I know exactly what you look like. I know exactly what you're the one who posts every 2 seconds. Like, that's the fucked up thing. Is like I remember this hippie I worked with one time. He goes, I remember when I was growing up, we didn't want the man to know what we were doing. Now you're telling everybody what you're doing.
Right.
You're telling everybody, like, no one figured out when you sit there being like, I'm in Hawaii. Isn't this great? Oh, no one noticed that now you're just telling every burglar in the world you're not at home.
Yeah.
They didn't figure that out until you walked in and be like, hey, where's all my shit?
You're not actually sick. Yeah.
That's why they always say, don't actually post where you are until you're home. Then say, hey, this is where I was. Because you don't sit there and be like, here I am, not at my house. Go do this.
Shit.
I've never thought about social media like that. We don't know a life without social media.
Yeah, we don't know a life.
That's just the life.
Well, I guess I don't.
I think we're going to tell our kids.
I didn't download social media until I was like a junior, senior in high school. So it was pretty late. So I remember times, I've never been a big video game person.
Yeah.
So I remember my childhood was not really on like online. It was kind of like still in person, still playing with friends and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, it's still different because everybody was still talking about what's weird.
That's the fucked up part about the whole concept of being able to communicate with someone. Being able to you even want to get more disgusting. I remember if you wanted to watch pornography, you had to get a tape.
You had to go to
you had to go to a
shop.
Store. You had to get the tape. Like I always make the joke on stage. Everybody goes, "How were these porno stars famous? They were just the person on the tape." That's
right.
Now you literally, you have every piece of pornography in the history of the world on your phone.
Less than a second, yeah.
Yeah, less than a second. Or that's why, again, I said this on stage about stand-up comedy. This shouldn't work. You literally have at your disposal every piece of entertainment in the history of the world, and yet you're here listening to a guy talk.
Right.
There has to be something intrinsic in us that we want to see something real.
In person,
live, and
well, you feel something.
Again, we are still human beings, and we still want to. That's the biggest. Someone said, I saw this thing Adam Conover did, which he said the reason why Hollywood is fucked is because they saw dollar signs and destroyed the movie star.
Yeah, that's true.
And he goes, and why? Because we became a fan of that person. It's the reason why sports and music live have come back quicker than going to the movies, because we still cheer for Ohtani. We still cheer for LeBron James. We cheer for people. We cheer for their stories. We cheer for them as human beings, or we cheer against them. But they sat there and we go, no. We don't want you to cheer for Schwarzenegger. We don't want you to cheer for Stallone. You're going to cheer for Iron Man. And we're going to make Iron Man the star so that we could put anybody we want in Iron Man. But then the problem was we all sat and we go, I don't give a shit about Iron Man anymore. I've seen your 5 movies with Iron Man. I don't give a shit.
What's the next?
Yeah, and now all of a sudden they're like, what? Star Wars. Like, We've
Bring it
already
back.
saw that.
Yeah.
What's next?
Nothing original's happening.
Because they're scared.
It's all about money.
Well, everything's always about money.
Yeah, but our risk capital is completely different than other countries. Like that's why I think movie industry in America works, because people are willing to put out millions of dollars and hope that they're going to get tens of millions of dollars, right? I mean, but the risk is so high. Like what, less than probably like 1% of the movies you're going to actually make money on in terms of all the movies.
And that's why they're trying to. Actually, my sister told me this story once where literally there was a screenwriter who wrote this great script, and they went, make it published as a book first, or publish it, make it an op-ed piece in the Huffington Post.
See how it performs.
That way it becomes a property, so they don't buy the script, they buy the property,
the
IP. So then, so it's almost like ass backwards to where it's like, oh, it has to become a property first.
Interesting.
So no one, and then so someone sits, because again, like someone buys the, you know, the podcast, the movie. It can't be, oh, I wrote a script about podcasts. No, make the podcast first, then I'll make the movie, and then I buy the rights to the podcast.
Yeah.
Then I'll write then I'll sell you the movie about the podcast.
That's a lot of the big podcasts. That's what they did, right? They made the podcast and then they sold the rights to their podcast, and now they're not making movies, but they're still like a show, pretty much.
Well, I mean, and that's, but I think the thing is that Hollywood has just stopped they've just fucked themselves over, because they thought they could outsmart everybody until they figured out, like, oh no, we're still selling to human beings.
Yeah, exactly.
We're still asking a human being to feel something.
Yeah.
And if they don't feel anything anymore, then they're just going to be like, yeah, you're not getting my money. I have a billion other things I could spend money on.
Yeah.
I don't need this. And now they're all scrambling.
Yeah.
And then they sit there and they're just like, what happened to Hollywood? There's always a kernel of an idea somewhere. There's always a guy, a girl, whatever, has a story.
Mm-hmm.
A story that's going to... Again, at one point, Star Wars was a nerdy kid from USC's idea. It was ripped off from 10 other things, but I mean, like, it was his idea.
Yeah.
Right.
And then it became the IP. And but again, most people just do things so they don't get fired.
Yeah.
So if you sit there and you go up to somebody and be like, hey, I made Chutes and Ladders, the movie. It made no money. Of course, well, you bought the rights to Chutes and Ladders. I guess that was it. But if you sit there and be like, oh, I made this movie that this guy had an idea with, it didn't make any money. Well, then you're an idiot. You're fired.
Yeah.
Instead of like, well, I made the Chutes and Ladder movie.
Right. Yeah.
It's not the ratios are off, because I feel like a lot of Hollywood executives, they want the success ratios to be so much higher than what it was when Hollywood was at its peak.
Because back when Hollywood was at its peak, it was people who were in the entertainment industry made the decisions. Now they're owned by Fortune 500 companies or their shareholders, and they're sitting there going, yeah, we don't care if you make hamburgers, you're a drugstore, or you make movies. This is just a product for us to make money off of.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is why, like, I've said this to a bunch of people. I go, that's the thing about stand-up. We're the last rock stars. We're the last people that say things that... When was the last time that a movie pissed people off? When was the last time a song pissed people off?
The Little Mermaid?
Yeah. Oh, well, that was because
the opposite. Yeah.
Well, and to be honest with you, that's why when someone said they're going to make the Little Mermaid black, I'm like, you realize you're doing exactly what they want you to do, right?
Yeah.
If you really are upset that the Little Mermaid is black, then just don't say anything.
That's such a good point, because movies were supposed to piss you off about,
or at least
society.
make you feel something.
Yeah.
That's what art's supposed to do.
Even songs, like the last song I could think of is Childish Gambino's "This Is America." That pissed some people off. That was like a statement.
And how long ago was that?
10 years, I think, right?
Yeah.
Probably.
When was the last time someone?
high school.
When was the last time someone made a joke on stage that pissed people off? Earlier tonight.
Every day, every hour. At the concert, yeah.
Did you see? Bill Burr has the greatest thing when someone sits there and be like, everyone on the internet. He goes, everyone on the internet isn't talking about it. It's 12 people.
Right.
Yeah,
I
they're
saw
allowed.
that.
Yeah. Everyone on the internet, most people on the internet are just showing pictures of their dogs. They don't give a shit.
Yeah.
You're giving them oxygen. You're making it an important thing.
We give so much power to people on the internet because if you go on any post, there'll be 1 million views and 2,000 comments.
I agree. Yeah, dude.
What is 2,000 divided by a million? 0.00 what? You know,
Yeah.
0.0 something.
You want to hear a ratio that should make you feel good about yourself? Think about this. There's 330 million people in America. If you walked into a room and there were 330 people in that room and 2 of them thought you were funny, you'd be like, I'm the worst comedian in the world. But all you got to do is, out of every 330 million people, find 2 of them that think you're funny, and you multiply that by 330 million. You built a fan base.
Yeah.
I
Just
mean,
keep going until you build a fan base.
well, and that's what you have to do. That's what you have to feel. That's what you have to find your people. You got to find your disciples. You got to find the people that, again, and the way you do it is you make that person feel as though they are cheering for someone that they feel they've got a connection to, that they've got some skin in the game with. And, you know, that's why I always feel it's weird that, like, OnlyFans girls have actually shown the way. They cut out the middleman and they go directly to the person and be like, do you want to see me naked? Give me $20.
Yeah.
Okay. There's me naked. What's we have? Hey, do you want to hear my take on blank? Give me $20.
Yeah.
All right, here you go.
Do you think that's the future of comedy? Like kind of like OnlyFans? Like I'm subscribed
Well, but
to
the concept
Bill
of
Burr's
cutting out, well, but that's Patreon.
Could be. Yeah.
That's Tim. I mean, Tim Dillon makes $70,000 a weekend and makes like $100,000 a week off his Patreon. So that's why he has the ability to live the amazing life he has when, like, he has said in interviews, people from the standard media have come up to him and said, I'll make a TV show with you. And he's just like, yeah, but then I got to listen to you.
Yeah. Why would you want that?
Yeah, why would I have my audience. I have a great life. Why do I have to bow down to you?
Right.
Because the first thing that someone will do if this became a TV show, all of a sudden a bunch of executives would be like, this is amazing. Thank you very much. Here are some notes on how we can change it.
Yeah.
Here's some things that we need you to do.
Yeah.
We need you to gain 30 pounds, lose 30 pounds, become this, cut your hair, do this, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, wait a minute. You bought this. Why do all of a sudden you buy it and then want to change everything about it, that the reason why you bought it in the first place?
So you think it's ego then, right? Because these executives think they can improve it.
Because ultimately they have
Money-wise.
to prove why they exist.
That Bill Burr was making a similar point. He was like, at the end of the day, they have to prove why they have a job, right? Like, why are they in charge of this department?
Yeah.
And
They have to do
Like, literally,
something.
they prove, they're like, oh, we exist because this is your weight is
Yeah.
250 instead of 240, like you said.
An entity, when time when I first came to LA, a comic and I were walking in Hollywood and we saw like the Paramount building. And he looks at it and he goes, you see that place? And I go, yeah. He goes, always remember, it's a building filled with people with no ideas. The reason why they have a meeting with you is you have an idea.
Yeah, fair.
They want, if they had ideas,
wouldn't
they'd
need
take no meetings.
Right.
They would deal with no one else but themselves.
Yeah.
But they've got no fucking clue what to put on. Like an executive one time, they were interviewing him and he goes, what's the biggest misnomer about your job? He goes, that all I do is say no. I have to say yes. If I don't say yes, then nothing happens. I have to say yes to something.
Yeah. It's making the right yes.
It's making the right yes, and consistently enough the right yes
Yeah.
to where you keep your job.
Yeah.
And that's why I feel for them, but I also know that fundamentally most of them are not needed. Fundamentally, and that's the thing that scares them. Because it's like, well, we don't make the content. We just sit in this room and just go, yes, 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 yes,
You
yes.
have to make yourself important almost.
You have to make yourself. Oh, that was my note.
Right.
That was my thing that I made that I did that. That was my contribution. That's why I have this enormous salary. That's why I am so important, because I made that decision.
Yeah.
Do you
How
know
do
that
they live with themselves like that?
on a giant pile of cash? You know the funny thing about it?
But you have to be like kind of aware of the corruption you're spewing.
But you know what's so weird? And this is why this makes them this has to make executives want to freaking jump off a bridge. The guy who greenlit Star Wars got fired the year that Star Wars came out. And here's why. So they one time interviewed him, and they go, a lot of people got the script to Star Wars. What did you see in this script that no one saw? And he goes, honestly, I didn't get it. I didn't know what the hell it was. It sounded like space pirates and a talking dog and a force and all this kind of weird stuff. I just thought George Lucas was a talented kid, and I wanted to be in business with him. So I said, here's some money, make your movie. And then when I was negotiating with him, he asked for ancillary rights. And I go, oh, okay, man, sell some T-shirts. I didn't know that was going to be where the real money was. And that's why he got fired. Because he sat there and he goes, look, the movie made $300 million. He goes, yeah, but we could have made $1 billion if we were in charge of the T-shirts and the dolls. You're fired. You're an idiot.
It's crazy.
So, but that's the thing. Like he did exactly what we all want to do. He greenlit it and all this kind of stuff. And then here's another cool story when it comes to Star Wars. Before he died, Burt Reynolds was interviewed.
The same executive.
No, Burt Reynolds. You know who Burt Reynolds is?
No.
Okay, Burt Reynolds, Smokey and the Bandit. Burt Reynolds in the 1970s was the biggest movie star in the world. And so before he died, they interviewed him. And he was famous for having turned down a lot of big roles. Like he was initially going to be Michael Corleone in The Godfather. But he was like, nah, I don't want to be.
Really?
Whatever. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He said no to The Godfather.
Yeah. Damn. And one of the roles that they brought up was Han Solo in Star Wars. And he sat there and he goes, hold it. You got to realize, here was the pitch. The guy who made American Graffiti wants to make a space opera where you play a pirate. Most of your scenes are with a giant talking dog.
Chewbacca. Or
you can go make Smokey and the Bandit, which is about you driving fast cars with Sally Field. I chose Smokey and the Bandit. And if you put it like that, you're like, yeah, that sounds like a pretty good choice. He made his money, whatever like that. But again, that's defending executives. You get the script from this kid who wants to make a space opera with wizards and a force and all this other kind of stuff. And you're just like, I don't fucking get any of this shit. But I'm going to give this guy $8 million. And if this thing fails, everyone's going to be like, why did you make the space opera with the pirate and the force and the talking dog and all this other kind of stuff? I don't know. Sounded like a good idea at the time.
But if it works,
you got a $4 billion entity.
You have Star Wars.
You have Star Wars.
Literally. This reminded me of the Nico Harrison trade with Luca, because everybody got so mad at him when that happened, and now the tide is shifting.
Well, that's the thing. I remember when that series happened, I said to everybody, I go, you realize if the Lakers lose in the first round, Dallas all of a sudden doesn't seem so dumb, because this is exactly why they got rid of him. Because they sat there and said, we're going to have to pay this guy $350 million, and we do not think we can win a title with him. So that's
perspective.
It's strategy.
Hindsight is always, hindsight's 2020. And it's that's why one of the funny things about it is like when I was on Sports Talk Radio, one of the things that you'd always ask is like, what do you think's going to happen this Sunday in the game? And eventually I sat there and went, you realize none of us know what's going to happen this Sunday in the game.
People love what ifs, though.
Well, I think the Steelers are going to shut down the Chiefs because they have TJ Watt. No, I think Patrick Mahomes is going to throw for 500 yards. You're wrong. I'm wrong. None of us are right or none of us are wrong. Game hasn't fucking happened yet.
That's ESPN's entire business model.
Yeah,
like what you just said.
What is?
Skip Bayless, Stephen A. Smith, Shannon Sharp, all these guys.
It's just it's argument turning into a sport.
Yeah.
And what?
Using stats, yes.
Well, but okay. Yes, you could sit there and be like, the Steelers rushed for 250 yards and shoot. Or the best is they'll sit there and they'll use a statistic that means nothing. The Steelers are all-time 2-11 playing the Jets.
That doesn't mean anything.
And I'm like, so half of those, 90% of those games were played like 20 years ago.
They're not relevant.
They're not relevant to this Sunday. Patrick Mahomes is undefeated when playing a team. And I'm just like, what does that make a difference to this Sunday?
The Warriors have increased their 3-point percentage by 500,000% since 1990. The threes were not even shot back in the 1990s.
Yeah. Since the one thing that I always love, and if you ever want to win this debate, because it always comes down to should XYZ be in the Hall of Fame? I always sit there and I go, well, understand what the Hall of Fame is. The Hall of Fame is a museum. If you go to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, it is a museum.
Yeah.
It is the Museum of Professional Football. So when you show up, you're basically going to be told the story of professional football. If you want to know whether XYZ should be in the Hall of Fame, really what you're asking is, can we tell the story of professional football without this person?
That's a good point, yeah.
So if you sit there and be like, can you tell the story of professional football without Tom Brady?
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Yes, he's first ballot Hall of Famer. Can you tell the story of professional football without Rich Gannon? Well, he was an MVP one year. Yeah. It's like if someone does the stand-up comedy Hall of Fame. Can you do it without Robin Williams? No, he's in.
Yeah.
Can you do it without Richard Pryor? No. He's in. Can you do it without Gallagher? Kinda no. He's in,
Can you do it without Matt Rife?
No.
No, because he changed the game.
He was the first, and this is not a comment on his comedy. He did the same thing that what's the other good looking, what's his freaking, I just forgot his freaking name.
Ibrahim Ahmed?
No. 2000, he's a 2000 comic. He used MySpace.
Russell Peters?
No.
Jesse Eisenberg?
Not Jesse. No, this was what is it? What white guy?
I have no idea.
This is how old I am. I have to friggin' check his friggin'.
There was a white guy in the 2000s.
Yeah.
Technology.
Yeah. Dane Cook.
Oh, okay.
Dane Cook. Okay.
Dane Cook. The reason why he broke is he was the first guy to realize building a fan base with MySpace. Because what he would do would be he'd be on stage, he was the opener, he was the feature. And he went to all these towns and he sat there and he goes, hey guys, if you like me, follow me on MySpace. And so all the kids who were on MySpace followed him. So the next time he was in Salt Lake City, he'd be like, hey, in 3 weeks, I'm going to be blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And so all the club owners then found out like, oh my God, he's building a fan base because all the kids would show up and he was still the feature. He would be getting more than the headliner. And so that's how Dane Cook, whatever. That's the same thing Matt Rife did. Matt Rife basically used TikTok. And also the brilliance was it was crowd work. So he wasn't burning material.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So he sat there and it's funny. My family back in Pittsburgh, the only comic they've ever asked me about that I had ever known out in LA, it's not Seinfeld, it's not Bill Burr, it's not Matt Rife. To them, that's
insane.
That's the comic.
They love Matt Rife
because they love him. He's relatable. He's good looking. He's exactly. So if you sit there and say, "Are we putting a comedy Hall of Fame?" He absolutely is in there. You cannot tell the story of the last 10 years of comedy without mentioning Matt Rife, because he absolutely. every comic who now posts stuff on Reels and TikTok with crowd work is because of how Matt Rife blew up.
Yeah.
What's your take on burning material? Because I feel like when comedians say that, you could just always write more material. Should that be a valid excuse?
Jay Leno one time, a buddy of mine opened for him back in the day, and he goes, what do you do if a comic takes your material? He goes, write it faster than he can steal it.
Yeah.
Keep writing.
The thing about burning material, you should always be, if someone sees you today and then sees you a year from now, at minimum 50% of your material should be completely new. Now, Seinfeld goes by the GE cuts the bottom 20% every year, whereas that's what made like George Carlin and Louis C.K. famous. In a sense, they go completely new every year, so that they just kind of like, they throw that old material away and they kind of go from there. Yeah. If there's anything that is kind of the bane of my existence, is when I'm in front of an audience and I want to win them over and I do a joke where I'm like, I'm doing my tried and true that I know will work, even though I feel I should be a good enough comic that I shouldn't have to do it. Like, if the room is tough, that's when you see me go to my material, because I'm like, ugh, I actually don't want to do this. I want to work on new shit.
We hear a lot of comics say that.
Yeah.
I run into that all the time, because it's like, it's guaranteed. You've tested it in front of hundreds, if not thousands of people.
It's scary, to keep pushing away if the new material's still not working, right? It's easy to go back.
CK always said the same thing. He says, if you're not bombing occasionally, you're not pushing enough.
Yeah.
If you tell me you've never bombed,
that's never happened. Yeah.
And then either A, you never go up.
Yeah. You've never done comedy.
Yeah, or B, you've
You never
I remember
done comedy.
the first time I bombed hard, I was at a Moose Lodge in Pittsburgh. And every comedy scene is the same. You have the city in which certain things work, and that's where your open mics are, and then eventually you get a gig somewhere else. So I was at a Moose Lodge. Okay, literally there was a giant moose behind me. And I did a joke where this was during Occupy Wall Street. And the whole concept was the 1%. So the joke, I said, the joke is about people who are like saying, we have to get the 1%, we have to get the 1%, is that we're all the 1% in this country. If you have running water, you're a part of the 1%. If you... Like, literally think about someone who lives their entire life and has to walk 50 miles to get clean water, and I wash my balls with clean water. I'm part of the 1%. Daily.
Yeah.
Like, and I sit there and I go like, oh, it has to be a certain temperature. It's a little too hot. It's a little too cold. And yet we live in a country where that is all possible. Like, most people live in a house made with their own shit. And that's their shit, that's Tuesday's shit, there's Wednesday's shit, and that's their dud uncle. And I said that in front of a group of people at a Moose Lodge in Pittsburgh, and it was complete silence, and the only thing I heard was a lady in the back going, ew.
That's the point of the story, though. They didn't get it.
Yeah, wow. And I sat there and I was like, oh, okay, if I do this again, I need some stuff that maybe isn't so like, don't make me remind me of my own privilege.
Yeah.
Don't remind me that there's people that don't live as well as I do.
But makes you want to tell it more to them.
And that, dare I say, becomes the balance. Because like I had a comic one time, he says one of the first things you got to figure out, and it's sometimes it changes, is how commercial do you want to be?
Right.
I think most of us are in the middle. We don't want, like, you. So you have some people that are like, I say whatever I want. I'm the biggest. I'll bend over backwards. I don't give a damn. I'll tell everybody in the world that if I'm in a room, if everyone in the room loves Trump, I love Trump. If everyone in the room hates Trump, I hate Trump. I'm like, that's that land. Yeah. Then on the other hand, there's the people who are like, I don't give a shit. I'll freaking do 45 minutes in front. I'll tell everybody they're terrible. And most people are not that. Yeah. Most people are kind of like, I want to say what I want to say and be famous enough to where I can eat and I can be famous, but I want to make it to where I can at least like my own material. Mm-hmm. That's kind of where most of us are. But that's, again, like you
It's not easy though.
It's of course it's, but that's what makes it great.
Yeah.
When you can
that's why most
make
people don't do it.
Seinfeld had the greatest joke. He sits there and goes, the number two fear of life is death. The number one is public speaking.
Yeah.
So that means most of the people in this world, if they go to the funeral, they'd rather be the corpse than giving the eulogy.
It's crazy.
And it is weird when someone sits there and goes up to you and be like, aren't you scared up there? Aren't you scared up there? And you're like, no, I'm more scared of this. This is weirder to me than talking in front of 1,000 people.
The one-on-one?
Yeah. This I'll fuck up. That up there, I'm fine. Because this, I eventually say something, I'm like, ooh, I shouldn't have said that.
That's why most comedians are socially awkward.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know most, but you know.
Well,
it's harder.
Yeah. Because this is direct judgment. This is like, you know,
eye to
eye,
Yeah.
one-on-one. In front of an audience, you're in control. You got the microphone.
Total.
You've practiced this. You've got the line. You've got the answer. It's the test you've taken before.
As we near the end of the episode, I want to ask you one more question.
Sure.
What advice would you give to yourself at this current time? I know people often ask, what advice would you give to your future self, past? I haven't asked a podcast.
Yeah, you haven't asked that.
What advice would you give to your current self?
I like that guy in the back. That's a good question.
That's our quant, bro.
Quantitative.
That's your the advice I have to keep giving myself is, Mike, ultimately enjoy the victories. Enjoy the fact that someone wrote on a rock once, it was posted on Instagram. It goes, remember when you were dreaming about where you are right now?
Yeah.
And sometimes you get to a point of like, I have to get that. 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 And you're in, like, again, I'm about the process. I'm about the next mic. I'm about this mic.
Mm-hmm.
No, remember, Mike, congratulate yourself about how well you are doing. Doesn't mean you stop. Doesn't mean you're not a work in progress, but acknowledge the journey you've been on and go, hey.
Good stuff.
Sarah Silverman said that. Said this once, and I completely agree with this.
Goddamn Sarah. She keeps coming up.
But she said something was very smart. If you went up to someone after you made a mistake, and that person said, you stupid son of a bitch, how fucking dumb can you be? What an idiot. You're such an idiot. You would never hang out with that person ever again. But that's our self-talk all the time.
Yeah.
So fundamentally, we should just at least be our own best friend.
Yeah.
Be the friend to yourself that you would want, that you are to others.
That's a good point.
You're right. Yeah.
Well, she's right. I give credit where credit's due.
No, we don't.
That's what she wanted to tell you.
Sarah Silverman.
No, Sarah. She should have said something to us.
Yeah,
she saw the pilot in our hand, man. She didn't say anything.
No, we didn't have the script.
No, we didn't have the script. We're just walking.
That'd have been so weird if you'd have done that.
The script in our head.
Just the fact that you made that into a networking thing, to be honest with you, which is so sad, is so many people I know did that. Like, that's why when that whole strike was happening, I kind of was just kind of like, if part of me was like, yeah, fight for the future and fight for your jobs and your life. But on the other hand, I knew so many people that were just, they weren't even writers.
Rascals.
They were just sitting there. They were just sitting there taking pictures going like you almost wanted to be like, there should have been someone like a bouncer at a bar sitting there going like, yeah, what's the last thing you wrote?
Yeah, football team should have been there.
Yeah.
Security.
But yeah, the UConn football team should have been. The USC football team should have been there. Like bouncing people, yeah.
To be fair, we know nobody in Hollywood. We're just doing our best.
Neither do I. I'm on your fucking podcast. Jesus, I'm not any better.
Where can people find you on social media?
It's a really difficult one. Just Mike Sasson.
How do you spell the Sasson?
Sasson. So Sass, S-A-S, Son, S-O-N.
And what was your podcast name that you had with you?
Mike and Ron Here to Help. It's with Ron Bush. Literally, it's very similar to this. It's a bunch of people, it's me and him, who talk about current events, but how you can, be better tomorrow than you are today.
Two dudes talking.
It's just two dudes talking, but with a positive attitude to how we can get better.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for your time, man.
Thanks,
Appreciate
bro.
it.
Cool. I'm never coming to Downey ever again.